Okay, so thank you very much. Welcome everyone. So this lecture today, we have colleagues Filip Černoch and Osička from Masaryk University. This is a lecture that is part of the GreenDeal-NET series. The GreenDeal-NET is a research network that deals with environmental issues and European studies. And as part of it, we are part of it. Masaryk University is part of it. Being part of this network has been very good for us because we were able to get in touch with our colleagues from Masaryk, and we now run a double degree program with them. So the Master in European International Studies together with the Master in Energy Policy Studies. And indeed, we have students who were selected from Masaryk who are here with us. So front row seats. And we also have a couple of their colleagues who are Masaryk University at the moment. So it's very good that Filip and Jan are here with us. As I said, so they're both associate professors from Masaryk University. They are in charge of the Master in Energy Policy Studies. You know, if you're interested in this double degree program, in a sense, it's a good chance perhaps to stop them at the end of the lecture and talk with them. They are very friendly. They don't bite. So they are political scientists, and they deal with issues related to energy, so energy policy, politics, and energy supply chains. And today they're going to talk to us about energy dependence, influence and power in international politics. So you have about 45 minutes, as you know, and then we'll get all the questions at the end.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks everybody for coming. Thank you, Mauro, for your introduction. So what we will be doing here for the next 40 minutes is we will be discussing two events in international relations, international politics. One is the 1973 oil shocks. We will be discussing it more generally and see how this may relate, this experience that we've collectively made, can relate to 2022 energy supply shock triggered by the war in Ukraine. And we'll see if we can spot any patterns, and then we will engage in some discussion. Thank you very much for showing up. It's quite a crowd here. So let me start with the 1973 oil shock. Just a very brief introduction. I'm sure that many of you know what happened there. We had quite a situation in the Middle East, and which escalated there. And we have had several countries coming from Western Europe and the United States in particular, and helping out one of the warring parties, right, Israel. And then what happened? Does anybody know? Would you care to help me out with creating the narrative arc here? It's a very general question, right? But excellent, very good, yeah. So to summarize, the decision of several OPEC countries was to manipulate the supply of oil in order to gain political leverage over United States and Western Europe, effectively to hit them economically, to think twice whether to support Israel or not, right? And this is like extraordinary situation. Like we know that these things happened before. We know that, you know, countries were using supplies of whatever materials, energy in particular, to gain political leverage. We've seen that during and before the Second World War. But in terms of scale and the impact this even, you know, created down the road, this is really unprecedented. So I would like to spend a little while discussing what are your options as OPEC. So you are a bunch of countries, you are delivering lots of oil to the world, which is very oil hungry. If you look at the consumption of oil between the Second World War and 1972, we see threefold increase in the United States, 15-fold increase in Europe, and 130-something-fold increase in Japan. So essentially, everybody was rebuilding their economies, and they were using oil as a fuel, as a feedstock in particular to do that, right? So that, you know, that's one assumption right there that allows you to use energy as a tool of foreign policy, that you have that leverage, you have that dependency on the other side of the relationship. And now what do? What can you do if you are OPEC country and there's United States doing stuff that you don't like? You can do embargoes, right? And that was part of the game. So you can say, well, that's it. No more oil for you, United States, no more oil for you, Netherlands, Portugal, other places. Now, what would happen the very next day? If you say, well, there's no more oil for these countries, what will happen? Sorry? Yes, very good. Yeah, they will retaliate, obviously. Very good. What else will happen? Will the US be out of oil the next day? What do you think? Yeah? Okay, yeah, as a part of the game, yeah, it will introduce some sanctions as well. Yeah, but I'm heading here towards the supply situation. If you say, well, I'm not delivering oil to the US, where will they get their oil from? Sorry? Yeah, if they have strategic reserves, which was not the case, then you can use them, obviously. Yeah, there was one point there. No, okay, fine. So what will happen is somehow the very next day, the consumption of oil in, say, Panama will increase 2,000 times. And somehow this oil will get from Panama to the US, and Panama will get a cut for it, right? So that's how you do it. If you sanction Russia, then suddenly somehow German industrial exports to Kyrgyzstan increase 2,000 times somehow the next day, right? So embargoes, they don't really work. They do, but they do not deliver that immediate effect that you want to deliver. So what can you do next? If the only effect of the embargo is that the US will buy the oil from somebody else as a middleman, right? That's not what you want. You want them to retreat from the war, right? So what can you do then? Exactly what they did, right? What we just discussed before. You decrease the production and you increase the price. And now this is crucial difference, because by increasing the price, you are obviously hitting the US, you are hitting the Netherlands and Portugal, but who else are you hitting with that by decreasing your production? What do you think? Who else can be, a victim of this? Okay, yeah, people in the streets, obviously, in those countries, yeah. But how about the other countries? Excellent, excellent. So by increasing the price, the crucial difference there is that you are hitting everybody. You are increasing the price for everybody around the world. If you cannot target the US, then you have to increase price for everybody. And this is what created the immense aftershock of the 1973 oil shock. And now think about this for a second, right? People who were tasked to deal with this, so you have this extraordinary situation where everything runs on oil. Oil is super accessible, is very good, much better than oil at anything that energy does, because it's liquid, you can easily transport it. It has very high energy content, you can use it for whatever you want. Oil is amazing as an energy source. And then you spend 25 years or 50 years setting up your economy so it revolves around cheap oil supply. You can do amazing things when oil is cheap. And oil has been cheap, right? You can see it here. In nominal prices, in real prices, below $20. Very nice. For decades, right? And then suddenly there's this spike to $12. And you feel, hey, that's, $12, still not bad. But it is bad when you are used, to oil at $3. So people who were tasked dealing with this, how old do you think they were? Maybe in their 40s, 50s, whatever. So their lived experience was something like this, right? This is where they, I don't know, This is where they were born, and this is where they joined politics and start to, influence things. And this is 1973. So all they knew was this. We are living here, so we don't care. We know that oil price is volatile, but for them, it was extraordinary situation, comparable maybe to what we have, endured during COVID, whatever. So this created a huge problem for economies around the world, but the reason remained the same. The trigger remained the same. You, as OPEC members, you wanted to get the US out of Israel. You wanted them to stop the military help to Israel. But the only way how to do it was to increase the price for everybody. And there you have the consequences that you can read widely about. So one of them, during the consequences in the developed world, were extreme shocks for the economy. Yeah, you see the pictures like that, people queuing at the gas stations, panicking, driving, riding horses at highways. And again, imagine living through this and coming from the United States, right? You have the image of the sole superpower, the beacon of freedom, the beacon of democracy, a nation that brings light to the world and is kind of a guardian of the free world. And you spend so much effort and attention in order to win the fight against the evil Soviets, right? That's your civilization mission there. And then what happens is you are hit this hard by people that most people don't even know they exist, right? How devastating this must be for your identity as a nation, for your national story, for your narrative, that you can be essentially brought to your knees economically and identity-wise by enemy that you hardly knew that ever existed, right? That's something that really scared the US identity for a very long time. And whenever you follow the new debates about who will be the US president, there has to be this bit about, we will be self-sufficient completely with energy, because being over-reliant on foreign oil is not acceptable. But the story gets way darker when we talk about developing countries. And the effect there were even more profound. So what you could observe was, and again, we are in 1960s, 1970s, and that's a phase of decolonization, right? So you have quite a big group of new countries joining the international community, and the task ahead of them was really massive. So what their leaders were asked to do was to create a set of functioning institutions, to join international economy somehow, and to create political and cultural independence on the former colonial power. So not a small task for new government of those newly independent countries. And what they wanted to do, or essentially what was the only way how they can join the international community in terms of the global economy, was to industrialize, to build new industries. And one way to do it was essentially borrow a lot of money, bring in all raw materials, and build new industries. And throughout this process, imagine your core commodity that you will be using, for all your projects, increase in the price 4 times. So all your development effort suddenly come to a halt, and the only way out of it is borrow more money and hope this will eventually go away, right? But as we know, it won't go away, because there's another oil show coming. In 1979 over here. So what you end up with is immense amount of debt that prevents you for further economic development and bounds you back to your former colonial power, who are the only creditors that are available in the world that is starved of cash as a result of this increase in commodity prices. So you make essentially a full circle, getting the political independence, but being brought back by the economic independence on the foreign credit. And that's not really great news for you being nation builders there in the newly independent countries, but other places as well. So, you know, the debt issue, the debt crisis that stemmed out of this is still here. It hasn't been solved. The aggregated debt of developing world is still there, and it's still one of the biggest problems of the international community. So that's one of the legacies. And finally, let's see how this whole idea of using oil as a tool of foreign influence really play out for OPEC. So what do you think would the other countries do? What do you think would the US do? What would you do if you were the US president or part of the US administration and you saw that dependence on oil is a problem and you are more or less easily, you know, can be easily influenced by this? What would be your next step? Very good. Yeah, excellent. So this is exactly what we'll be doing. So we will seek your, you know, how to do things without oil. So for example, you can ban using oil for electricity generation. You have other sources for that. And you will seek other suppliers. So yeah, the Middle Eastern oil is the cheapest, but is it? It's not anymore. It costs $12. You can do many things for $12. And this is also a signal if you are a producer, right? If you are a producer of oil, and there's this oil field that you have discovered in 1960, and you know, your geologists told you that, okay, getting the barrels out of that new oil field would cost you $6 per barrel, and now the price is $4, so you wouldn't be doing it because you'll be losing money on each and every barrel you get out of the ground. But if OPEC made the cost of oil 12, you can say, well, thank you very much. There's $6 per barrel waiting for me. So if you look at the timing of development of new oil fields, for example, in North Sea, in the UK and Norway and Alaska and places like this, it relates to this. If you make oil expensive, what you are triggering is people roaming around the world and searching for it so they can take advantage of this high price of oil. So what are you doing effectively as OPEC is that you have this one card and you know that you can play it just once. Because once you play it, then your counterparties will make sure that they never get to the same situation. They will never get to the situation they will be as dependent on oil and as dependent on oil from you, because that's a security risk, you know, par excellence, as we saw. The next thing is that when you use the card and you make the price high for everybody, you are incentivizing everybody to get new oil to the market, and you are effectively undermining your position. And that's something that you can see here, right? So we see the oil price going up here with the first and second oil shock, and then the production of oil outside of OPEC is going up significantly while the demand is going down, because there's economic crisis and because, you know, economies and businesses are doing other things than oil because of that risky nature of oil that has just, you know, came to being. And as a consequence, the producers that have to cut their production are the OPEC countries, right? Because nobody wants to buy from them anymore because they are a risky producer. So that, you know, I will end this on the note that, yeah, when you have somebody, when you are oil producer or gas producer or whatever, and you have some other country dependent on you, that's potentially very strong card. And those of you who come from political science, you know, have been in contact with this idea. Okay, there's a lot of oil coming in from that country, so maybe we should behave, you know, things like that. But then it's not that easy when it comes to really using it. First, because you can use it only once. And second, it might not bring you the thing that you wanted, and you might effectively undermine your position in the long term, losing the car. Because what was the end game here? What did the US do? Did they back off from supporting Israel? No, they did not, right? So it was a massive, really a massive reshuffling of money throughout the global economy as a consequence of the 1973 oil shock to make the US back off, and they did not. Right? So that's one thing worth keep in mind. I will pass the mic to Filip.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I'll be commenting on the second energy crisis, the crisis 2 years ago. Here's the problem. I'm known for speaking quite loud normally, and that does not work that well with the microphone. And it's known as well. And once I get too enthusiastic, I may start shouting into the microphone. So please raise your hand or wave at me. There's no need to suffer for anybody. If it's like deafeningly loud, please let me know, because like normally I easily capture the whole room without the mic. So getting back to 2022, I'd like to comment on the energy crisis, and I'd like to comment on the project of common market. And you do have the background in European studies, so you know the common market, the general one. I'd like to comment a bit more on the specific subsection of that, on the energy market. What was the role in the energy crisis? Because it is important, and we know that this project basically emerged to deliver the efficiency in the European Union. The aim was the economic one, to lower the prices, to bring the efficiency. So what we've done over the last 30 years, and it was a painful journey and very difficult one. What we've done is basically that we've replaced the system that were there after the Second World War. Isolated countries, monopolized markets, and Michele, some of you are familiar with how monopolies work. So monopolized markets, isolated countries, no cross-border trade, no physical interconnection between countries. That was the setup after the Second World War till 1990s, right? Energy islands operated by the national monopolies. And we started to change that for economic reasons, again, to deliver the efficiency. We've started to change that in 90s, replacing that with a common market, meaning the area, the pan-European area without internal borders, with free flow of all that stuff you were discussing, in our case, electricity and natural gas, right? And with growing cross-border infrastructure. And let's see whether it has the economic benefits only, or whether there's some contribution for the resilience in terms of geopolitics of the European Union, right? So we're getting back to 2022, and what we can see is that the prices of natural gas, which is the dark blue, is going up, and it's dragging the price of electricity up as well. So what was the main driver of increasing prices? Not a difficult question. Anybody? 2022, like 2 years ago, you probably know. Just shout it at me. Be a little bit more loud.
Right.
Yeah, it's obviously the war. It's a Russian-Ukrainian war, and what is happening over the course of time that's the same as Jan commented, and you see it's quite difficult to talk to microphone and to adjust that to the room. You have growing pressure from Russia to use the natural, or growing will of Russia to use natural gas as a political weapon, meaning that you're slowly decreasing the exports to the European Union for multiple reasons, and some of them are technical, some of them are trade related and payments in rubles, etc. What that means is that first, the European Union is facing increasing prices. They are going really through the roof. We've started 20 euro per megawatt hour in terms of natural gas before the war, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, you're reaching 180. So prices are bizarre. And at the same time, you're facing physical shortage of natural gas, which is a huge bummer, obviously, because you're using that to provide heat, provide electricity. Also, it's more and more important due to the renewables. So you're backing up renewables with flexible source of energy as a feedstock. So fairly important source of energy. And Russia plays a significant role in this trading. European Union imports some 80 to 90% of natural gas. We're producing just a tiny bit of that, right? And at the same time, Russia represents like 40% of that. So once you start to shutting down the pipelines, you're impacting prices quite a lot, and you're impacting the physical supplies quite a lot. So we see the very same pattern, like using the energy as a political weapon. In this case, in this situation, the common market starts to kick in. How? Well, the first issue is that it allows for efficient use of infrastructure. Not only allows for efficient use of that, but for a very long time, it facilitates and demands building of cross-border lines. So without the common market, what would happen, for example, is that you have those shipments of LNG cargoes to countries with LNG terminals, Portugal, Spain, the Netherlands, etc. Without the common market, what would happen, and without the physical infrastructure there and rules that allows for using that in a cross-border way, what would happen is simply that you would end up with some countries being lucky, or lucky Portugal, or lucky Spain, with a lot of natural gas, but without physical infrastructure and also without the rules that are enforcing that this gas is being distributed to less fortunate countries in Central Europe, Germany, etc. So that's one issue, that simply there's infrastructure there, and there are rules that allows for using that in a pan-European Union manner, actually enforcing that. The second issue is that the common market and the common trading regime is able to send proper price signals both domestically, meaning that different prices at different trading places, different hubs in the European Union, they are sending where the gas is most needed, where there's relatively enough of that. And it is also sending a strong message to the world that the gas is needed. Sounds trivial, but again, without that, you would have maybe gas coming to European Union via LNG cargoes, but the improper price signals would not be able to redistribute it in the European Union or over the European Union in the most efficient way. Over the whole crisis, the trading places continue to send the price signals and continue to trade. And the third issue is that for those 3 years of building common market, common energy market, we've built the whole governance of that. And again, that's the term you're familiar with, like the set of rules and actors and institutions that are supervising whole market, which means that when there was this case of emergency, governments in cooperation with the European Union, they were able to introduce some rules that were meant to help the situation, like the gas storage mandates, the rule that countries need to fill their gas storages to some extent before the winter, or revenue cap for inframarginal sources that are producing for cheaper prices, electricity, redistributing the costs, or market correct mechanism, setting some cap on what could be the price of natural gas. And once the European Union, in cooperation with member states, prepared these rules, you already had efficient governance structure that was able to deliver these rules and these principles to the national states. So from this perspective, and it's fairly interesting that project that was originally meant to deliver economic efficiency efficiently provided a geopolitical resilience as well. Now, was everybody better off? Well, unfortunately not. Without common market, some countries would be better off. Those countries with little or small dependence on Russian sources, with a robust LNG infrastructure. Those countries, again, Spain, Netherlands, and some others, they would benefit from or they wouldn't be harmed that much. But there would be some countries hurt quite a lot. Germany, Central Europe, and some other regions. And that's a reminder that for the European Union, it's not about the idea is that this common market, this common project, from this common project, everybody should benefit in a way. But the main concern is the stability and resilience of the European Union as a whole. So that's a reminder. Maybe without this common market, we would have few countries a little bit better off and plenty of others in a very dire situation. The whole common market helped to somehow level the whole situation and efficiently redistribute the problems and efficiently improve the situation for the European Union as a whole to avoid political consequences and economic consequences, etc. So what is the message really of this? European Union has a problem of being dependent on fossil fuels, and simply there is no way that we are able to find some new oil fields or gas fields. Simply, European Union in this regard is depleted. No way that we are able to be in the same position as the United States, like being able to export oil or export natural gas. But, and that's a good news, properly set institutions, in our case, common market, could mitigate some of the problems with this dependency. And that's basically a message for you because you have background in law, you have background in international relations, in political science, in governance, meaning that you, and it's kind of pushy, but you are responsible for building these institutions that could somehow mitigate for the fact that there simply are no new oil fields in Europe or no new natural gas fields in Europe. So that's a good news, right? That it's up to you to deal with these problems. So if you screw that up, let's hope not. Maybe few comments on comparing like those two situations, the situation in 1973 and 2022. There are some common patterns. First, the country or the entity that is using the energy as a political weapon, it's very difficult to aim at one given country or one given entity. Usually you hit everybody around the world. In this case, it was the same. When Russia stopped supplying European Union with natural gas, it was not only about the European Union, but because of increasing prices of natural gas in the world, and basically European Union outbidding other countries. There were cargoes originally meant to be delivered to Pakistan and to India, other countries that were rerouted to Europe, which means that basically you as a Russia, you hit plenty of innocent, in this sense, countries as well. So that's one takeoff from the situation. At the same time, you've mentioned, or Jan mentioned that it's a one card that could be used only once. That's the same case. Like once you use natural gas as a political weapon, being Russia, now you have plenty of gas, but no customers. Who could buy actually Russian gas these days? Any guesses? But how? There's no physical infrastructure. You have one pipeline going to China, very small one, totally not prepared to compensate for the losses in Europe. Like originally you delivered 155 billion cubic meters to Europe. Pipeline to China is like 2025. So no way to like physically to deliver it somewhere. You have LNG terminal, but just one. And you're not able to build any other because it's sanctioned. So basically you have plenty of gas, no customers, no infrastructure, and very angry Europe that is getting poor as well because you're like playing with the prices. So that's like the second message. That was the third one, but I forgot that one. So probably during the debate, we come up with that. So that's just a comparison of some of the issues if you're using energy as a weapon or as a tool in international relations. And now probably we're moving to the question part. And you're not deaf, quite obviously. So any questions, any comments, any issues? Anybody's questioning our logic or our outcomes? And you're well equipped to do so because, again, you have different backgrounds, different expertise. So any comments, anything you'd like to add?